Well, good day, viewers. Today we have a 2009 Land Rover LR2. It's here because of a noise in the wheel. Sounds like a bad wheel bearing on the right front from the road test. But it's also here because, let's start it up. That's interesting. He didn't say anything about it not starting. The complaint is the battery indicator light is on, and now I see it's not on. I drove it in last night and the battery indicator light was on. Charge indicator light. Now I see the check engine light is on, but the battery indicator light, which was over here, if I'm not mistaken. Let's try it with the key off. Isn't there an ignition process here? Yeah, there's the battery indicator light under the oil pressure light. Now it's not going on. He's been driving it around for quite a while with the battery indicator light on, so I'm sure it's actually charging, but well, I guess the first order of business is to scan it and see what codes it has to offer. So I've worked on this vehicle in the past, so I loaded the vehicle record. Should auto ID. I hope it allows me to scan it while it's running. Has no plate on it. Didn't pull the odometer, but we'll get that after. Let's do a network code scan of all the controllers. Didn't specify key on, engine off. So we got an oxygen sensor, stuck rich, air conditioning, refrigerant, charge loss, lost communication with starter generator control module. Well, that could account for the battery warning light being on. Fan control circuit low. This thing has a problem with the radiator cooling fan. It's had that problem for some time. Anti-lock brakes, lost communication with four-wheel drive clutch control module, battery voltage below threshold, brake pressure sensor plausibility, body control module crash input, no subtype. They had this code for crash input before and it wouldn't crank. When I went to bring it in last night, because it snowed last night, at first it didn't respond to the start request button. And I tried a couple times and then it just started. Now I don't know if this is a problem again. Number of wiper motor problems, battery voltage below threshold. Wow, we're chasing a ghost now. Control module general signal failure or system internal fault. Tire pressure monitoring, crash input. It's got a few codes in it. Build end of line mode is active. Cabin temperature sensor fan. Left temperature damper door, right temperature damper door, recirculation damper door. Wow, look at the codes in this thing. It's crazy. Where do you even start? Mirror folding feedback circuits. Well, we got a record of all of these codes. The scanner keeps a record, so we're going to clear all codes, read by code scan. And then we're going to have a look at some data in the engine control computer. I assume that the engine control computer is in charge of the charging system. This alternator may be likely LIN bus to the instrument or to the ECM, but I don't know for sure. It did mention a battery control module, so that there could be a separate module controlling the charging system. Pick up when we get to the end of this network code clear. So detected 18 systems and it did not clear the codes from the engine control computer, likely because it was running. A lot of systems won't clear the codes when it's running. Let's try this. Going into the engine by itself. And let's read the codes and see if we still have the same codes we had before. Yeah, we do. Let's try clearing them and see what it says. Must be key on, engine off. Well, let's try that. So I've got the key on, engine off. Clearing the codes. I suspect the fan control code will come back because that code was there before. It's maybe the conditions for the code setting haven't happened yet. Engine, powertrain, charging. So we'll have a look at some data in here. Oh, that's a big data list. Really? Current state of main relay. Minimum pump current at changeover valve switching. Well, that was useful. Way to go, Snap-on. Well, let's look at powertrain. See if we have any batteries at 12 volts right now. I got no charger on it. I got the key on. I'm going to start it now. So I'm going to build a custom data list here and have a look at some stuff that I feel might be related to the charging system. As we'll look at fuel level input. Still don't know why it didn't initially start properly. Acted like it was not receiving fuel. Not a lot of data in this. Let's check fuel rail pressure while we're here. Coolant temperature. That's in the engine data list. Let's have a look and see what's available in the emissions data list. Not a lot. And of course, we know in that relay switches charging accessory data list, there were 2 data parameters. Okay, let's look at a graph view of the stuff I selected. It is charging according to the DLC voltage at 13.2 volts. Control module voltage 13.6. I only picked 6 data parameters. I prefer this style of graph. It is charging at 13.6. I wonder if any codes have come back. Fuel rail pressure. I'm going to watch this fuel rail pressure when I shut it off. I'm just going to turn the key off and then back on again. Hopefully we don't lose data. So it went from 113 and it's dropping. I turned the ignition off and then turned the ignition back on, so the engine's not running, and now the fuel pressure is dropping. I would expect it to hold fuel pressure. I don't think this is GDI, but I think it's port. And if the fuel pressure is leaking back, that could account for extended cranking on a hot restart, or on a restart. It wasn't hot. It was at room temperature because it's been in my shop all night. And he never mentioned anything about starting it. That's a secondary issue. So I'm going to save these data parameters. So I've saved that recording. I'm going to start it up again and see how fast the fuel pressure rises, or if I get an extended crank now. Well, that's inconclusive. Yeah, well, so I'll have a look at some cases, and let's see if any codes came back. Yeah, lost communication with the starter generator control module. I wonder if that's the, I wonder if the charge indicator light is on now. So as you can see, the battery charging indicator light is on. There's a problem with the adaptive headlights. I see that flashing headlight icon. I think the headlights turn with the steering or something, or maybe it hasn't been relearned. Let's have a look at the wiring diagram. I think this alternator could be LIN bust. There's that flashing icon there. So I loaded up Identifix here and I did a keyword search for the U0120-87, and there's no cases on it. But here it is, the diagnostic flow chart here, or at least a summary. Lost communication with starter generator control module missing message. Possible causes are local interconnect network, circuit open, shorted, short to power, or a control module fault. And it basically says carry out complete vehicle read of D2Cs indicating a local internet network or module to rectify as necessary. So basically you're on your own. So I'm going to have a look at the electrical diagram for this. So here's the OEM version of the schematic, and it shows the generator and starter, or the battery positive wire from the generator going to the battery cable, and it only shows one wire coming off the generator alternator, so to speak, and that is a LIN bus wire going to the engine control module. So either we have a problem with that wire, an open, short, or short to ground, or short to voltage, or we have a problem with the generator itself, and I'd be leaning more towards the generator problem. It appears that with a communication failure, it still charges at 13.2 volts, which is adequate to keep the battery from going dead, but it's turning on the warning light in the dash because the ECM is not happy with the loss of communication. Yeah, I'm going to do some more research. So here's the Mitchell version of the diagram. It's a little easier to understand. It basically shows the output wire from the alternator teed into the starter motor wire, so that's obviously good because it is charging. But it only has one other wire on the alternator, kind of like the Mercedes I did a few months ago. It has a LIN bus wire between the ECM and the alternator itself. I'm going to look at access to this alternator, see how hard it is to get to. So I finally figured out what happens when a mechanic sleeps with an engineer's wife. This is what happens. There's the alternator under the intake manifold. You can see some kind of drive belt on it, or a coupler on it, or something. And you can actually see, look at that. I wonder if that wire is compromised right there. Looks like that wire is corroded right at where it comes out of the alternator. That's the LIN bus wire coming up into this harness. That'll be fun to try to fix. If I can reach underneath the intake manifold. That looks a little suspicious. Sure, that wire is corroded right there. See the green stuff coming off of it? I'm going to see if I can unplug that wire. So I managed to get that connector off. You can see the wire corroded there. I'm sure it's going to just pull right off. There it goes. To get the connector off, I used a 90-degree pick to pry it in here down to pull the clip off. And I sprayed it with penetrating fluid and blew it dry. So now I'm going to try to depin this wire and repair this terminal. So I did manage to get the plastic lock out, but unfortunately it broke. You just typically pry it straight up that's a secondary lock. Now we need a needle of some type or a pin of some type to release this terminal. Pay attention to the orientation. This terminal is not used. Well, it's plugged anyways, so you can see that. And it looks like we got to pry it this way and try and pull the terminal out at the same time. So you can see, to release that terminal, there are two metal tabs that you have to compress simultaneously on each side. There's a U-shaped tool, believe it or not, I don't have. So this wire we're going to try and repair, because I don't have this terminal, and put it back together again. So I added a section of wire to it. I used uninsulated butt splices and soldered them. I'm going to heat that up a little bit more right there. It's not shrunk completely. Now the next challenge is to try to plug it in. So I was able to get it back on there using this little retrieving tool down through here, and then a screwdriver from the back. It's plugged in. We're going to clear the code and see if the problem is fixed. We're going to go into the engine, clear codes. Look at data, and we're going to look at charging system output. It was like 13.2 or 3 before. Control module voltage and battery voltage, and we're going to fire it up. Well, it's 14 volts. The control module showing 14 volts. The battery indicator light is now off. Let's see if we've got any fault codes. Just a fan problem that he's had forever. And that's going to turn the check engine light on, I'm sure. P0691-00. Might investigate that, seeing as how we got lucky with the alternator problem. Certainly don't want to change a alternator on this thing. Let's go back in and have a look at the charging system voltage one more time. $14 volts. So it appears that with that LIN bus circuit down, in this case it was open because of a corroded wire. Man, that wire was tiny. It was like 24 gauge. I used these Pico butt splices. They're seamless, and then a piece of heat shrink to repair that. And I soldered the wire to the side of the terminal inside there. Yeah, that's it. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.